What up, all my fight fans? So, UFC 290 got announced a couple of days ago, and I want to get your guys' thoughts about that. We got ourselves Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez for the undisputed featherweight championship of the world. We got Pantoja versus Brandon Moreno for the flyweight championship of the world, and we got ourselves Robert Whitaker versus DDP. And then we got quite a few other fights on there. Nothing that's gonna really blow your hair back, in my personal opinion. I know Dan Hooker's on there. I know they got Sean Brady on there. They got a few other names on there. They actually even got Robbie Lawler on the the main event of the prelims on there as well. So let me ask you guys something. Is this like the blockbuster we all hoped and wanted for this summer? Because we know International Fight Week, I guess you could say IFW, like International Fight Week, is usually a big deal for the UFC come July. It's when it's supposed to have its big, tremendous fight week. It's supposed to have like a big old gathering. Everyone, they have all kinds of different media outlets and different, they have training sessions. They have a bunch of different things they do here in Las Vegas when, the fights do take place. And I believe that's when it's supposed to take place, in Las Vegas. So that's why I'm just wanting to ask you guys, do you think this is like big summer blockbuster card? Me personally, I don't feel like it is. I don't get me wrong. No disrespect to these guys on the card. It's actually a fun fight card. Honestly, it's probably the best fight card that we've had as of recently. But at the end of the day, does it scream blockbuster? Does it scream to you like, yes, when we were kids, we remember summer blockbusters, Pirates of the Caribbean, Transformers, Avengers Infinity War, Independence Day. Those would scream to you summer blockbusters, Jurassic Park. All those movies usually came out around summertime. I'm sure a few others came out in different times. But when we thought of it, we were like, oh yeah, this is not a movie you're going to see in March. This is a movie you're going to see during summer. We don't normally get big blockbusters like during the beginning of the year, or towards the middle of the year, or towards the end of the year. Usually the end of the year you get your Academy Award nominated movies, but the big summer blockbusters, that's when they come out. Obviously it's summertime. So this is something that I feel like Dana White was supposed to do, or trying to do, and he's actually been doing it for quite some time. As a matter of fact, I'm not saying trying, he actually has been doing it. He's had some really good summer fights. I remember back in the day, I wanted to go to that Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva Part 2. On the undercard, it was Tito Ortiz versus Forrest Griffin, and you had Dominic Cruz versus Uriah Faber. Now, I believe that Dominic Cruz-Uriah Faber fight fell through. Unfortunately, that did not come into fruition. But still, you hear that, you're like, wow, that is summer blockbuster. I remember during COVID, I think it was, you had Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. You had Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. I think you even had Amanda Nunes. Those screamed blockbuster. Those were like, wow, this is what we got going on. I even remember they tried to do UFC 200. Now, of course, they lined it up really good, but unfortunately the fights fell through. You had Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. That didn't come around. You had Daniel Cormier versus John Jones. That didn't come around. And then you had the return of Brock Lesnar, which turned out to be a little bit of a dud. So, they stacked it, but unfortunately, bad luck ended up happening, and the fights end up falling through. Or not falling through, they end up falling apart, I guess you could say. So with this fight card, it really feels like it needs another main event. And this is something that we are actually hoping that did happen. We were hoping that we would get John Jones versus Stipe this July. Now that, you put that on top of that fight with Volkanovski and Yair Rodriguez, with Brandon Moreno and Pantoja, that screams blockbuster. 100%. That's what this fight needs. Now, Volkanovski is starting to become of a star in his own right. Of course, Brandon Moreno is an international star, especially over there in Mexico. But they're not really big superstars. You're not going to go to some random fan and say, hey, you know who Alexander Volkanovski is? Not a whole lot of people are going to know. No disrespect to him. But, of course, a lot of people know John Jones. Some people know Stipe, even though Stipe has been gone for a while. So, at the end of the day, these guys are actually, big blockbustering stars. I know they had, other fights on there. They had Izzy, he fought, I believe, last year against Jared Cannonier. It wasn't the greatest matchup, but Izzy still is a star in his own right. At the end of the day, that's what screams International Fight Week. Right now, this card doesn't. And I still am going to watch it. I'm still going to enjoy it. That featherweight championship of the world is going to be very, very interesting. Volkanovski we already know he's the GOAT right now in the featherweight championship of the world, or in the featherweight division, and he's also pound for pound number one in my book. And Yair Rodriguez is no punk. Yair Rodriguez is a really, really fast-paced kickboxer. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Volkanovski, how he can handle it. I personally feel like Volkanovski is going to win, but I will break that fight down as we get closer. Another fight that's actually very interesting is Robert Whittaker versus DDP. You know, we are all hoping that we get that DDP matchup against Izzy Adesanya because they're building this beef with each other. You know, there's a lot of talk between this South Africa and all this other stuff that they keep going on about that I really want to see, you know, get settled in the octagon. No disrespect to Robert Whittaker, but I don't feel like it would sell as much. You know, Robert Whittaker versus Izzy, part 3, not so much. So, but at the end of the day, it still is something fun to watch. But do I think it's a blockbuster International Fight Week card? Personally, I don't feel. But let me know in the comments, guys, of what do you think. Do you think it's a big fight? A big fight, International Fight Week card that got announced. Do you think it's a big blockbuster? Let me know in the comments, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.